So I know I'm not alone in wishing I could communicate with my pet. Um, I have a beagle named Calvin, and there are so many times I wish that I could talk to him and just find out, is he happy? Is there anything he needs? Especially when he's sick, I wish I could know if he's in pain or what I could do to help him feel more comfortable. Um, so if you are someone who has ever wished you could get inside the mind of your pet, this conversation is definitely for you. My guest today is Tatiana August of Soulful Animal Connections, and she is an animal communicator. So I just want to welcome you, Tatiana. Thank you so much for being here. So excited for this conversation. I guess the first place to start is, what is that experience like for you? Do you need the animal to be right there beside you to communicate? And is it almost like you hear voices, or do you see kind of like images in your mind, or is it more like a feeling in your body?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me. So when I communicate with animals, I connect with them remotely. So all I need is, basically a picture, their name. I don't need them to be physically present with me because it's an energetic connection. So I'm just tuning in energetically. It's kind of like a phone call when you're dialing into a phone number. You're just dialing in, you're tuning into that number, you're connecting with them. So it's the same thing. I'm tuning into that specific animal, having that energetic connection. And this is something that actually everybody can do. So most people receive it through, different clears, different senses. So it could be clear audience, where you're hearing the thoughts, the words in your own mind. A lot of people think it's maybe a thought or a word that's like a different, coming from a different person or like a different voice, but it's actually your own voice. So that's why sometimes it could be tricky because you're hearing your own thoughts, but it's the animal's thoughts. So that's the clear audience. And then clairvoyance is where you're seeing the images. It could be a still image, it could be multiple images, a moving picture. So those are the clairvoyance that you can kind of get through. And then you have the clear sentience. So that's the feeling. So you're feeling the animal's feelings, sensations in your body, especially if you're kind of tuning into how they're feeling. If they're having any pain or discomfort, you can feel that as well in their body. So those are the main three, and then there's also like clear cognizant, where you just have a clear knowing. Though that's a little bit harder to explain because people can't really explain like how that happens. They just know. They just know the information that comes through. And then there's also things like where you can get the smell, whatever the animal's smelling, that goes through your senses as well. You can get a taste. An animal might be sharing a specific taste, and you're getting that as well. So those are the main senses, and for me, I mostly get it through clear audience. So I'm hearing the words, hearing the thoughts, clairvoyance, where I'm seeing the images play out. Sometimes I do that, get the clear sentience. So usually that happens more when I'm tuning into an animal and they're sharing like past trauma, abuse. I can really feel the emotions when they're sharing that as well.
Wow, that is so fascinating to me. Um, so, what do you think is the reason? Because as humans, we obviously assume that you need the animal right there to be able to communicate, because typically that's how it is for us. Although not now, we're communicating miles apart from each other. But how is that you don't need the animal right there with you? Is that surprising to people a lot that they don't have to be there with you for an animal reading?
Yeah, it's just an energy. So we're all energy. It's just an energetic connection. A lot of animal communicators actually prefer that the animal not be present with you because it could be a distraction. So,
Oh,
like for example, if I'm trying to talk to my dog, I'm talking to her and she starts to leave, get up and leave the room, she can still be talking to me, but for me it's like, oh, she just left the room. So that's why a lot of people actually prefer just to have no distractions, just the soul to soul energy connection with their animal, with the animal.
wow. So, do you have kind of like a process? Maybe I'm guessing, but I won't try to put words into your mouth. Some sort of like a meditation process to tap into the energy of the animal when it's time to do a reading. What is that experience like for you in terms of how you tap in and the environment you create for yourself?
Yeah, so usually for me, I like to be really centered and grounded. Sometimes it's nice to light a candle, have a little bit of music in the background.
Mm.
It's really, I kind of consider it a very sacred space. So I really need to clear my mind, not be having all these like thoughts. I need to have a really clear headspace as well. And it's just really important to ground. I do kind of do not really a meditation, but I ask my guides, my helpers, angels to kind of come in as well and really set the intention that I'm, clear in the present moment, really receiving the messages from the animal. You don't necessarily have to do all that stuff. You can actually, once, you can technically just tap in right away, but just it helps to have that support, to have that clearer, communication.
Well, I'm curious about this. Did you always feel like you had psychic abilities around animals even as like a young child? And what was that like? Or was this something that you chose and a path that you chose as an adult and you're able to like take classes and learn how to do it?
Yeah, so I've always had a love for animals, like I think most people do. I was always, as a child, I always was into like the stuffed animals. Never wanted to play with dolls or Barbies. I was always finding stray animals, on the streets, bringing them home to my parents' dismay. So for me, I've always had a love for animals, and I got my master's in social work. I did things to help people. I was very into the spiritual, holistic community, and I was doing like frequency healing for people, but something still felt like it was missing. So a couple years ago, I started stumbling upon animal communication, animal communicator videos. And prior to that, I was aware of animal communication, but I thought it was only for the gifted few. That you had to be born with this gift, only a couple people can do it, I can't learn it. But these videos were people basically saying anyone can do this. So that same summer, I actually saw a video from Penelope Smith. She's known as the grandmother of interspecies communication, and she started teaching this back in the 1970s. So I got really lucky because she was coming out of retirement to teach a course during the summer. So I took the course, and it was just really profound, really awakening for me. And I actually started connecting with my dog. So that was my first connection to really see how this works. So when I connected with my dog, she was showing me an image of a ball with like sticks and thorns poking in it. And I just kind of got this very uncomfortable, something was wrong kind of feeling. So I disconnected from her. She was in the same room, so I went to her. I checked her over. I flipped her over because she's a small dog, and she actually ended up having a small tick on her chest. So that was pretty surprising to actually get an image. It resonated. You can see the results. So that's kind of how this whole thing kind of got started. And I am an avid learner. I love learning from everybody their own little tips and techniques. So then I learned Alex Anderson. So she incorporates a Huna perspective, which is like a Hawaiian teachings and philosophies. And so hers was really interesting because it really taught me more about the ethics and the boundaries with this kind of work. So if you're going outside and, let's just say you see a horse on the field, you have to be kind of mindful to really, if you really need to connect or not, because if I'm connecting to that horse and the horse is really excited that someone can finally listen to them, talk to them, and the horse decides to maybe share that they have pain in, the right leg, I can't do anything about it because I don't know who their person is, their guardian. I don't know if that person will even be open to this. So that kind of opened my eyes to a little bit more like awareness of if I do, end up talking to animals, you want to make sure you have that permission from the guardian or have that connection with their guardian. And then, from there I also did Sarah Jane LeBlanc from the UK. She has over 30 years of coaching and teaching expertise. And this was really valuable because when you're talking with animals, it's like talking to people, especially if you're doing like behavioral work with them. You need to have those coaching and therapeutic skills. So that came in handy. And then the last one that I finally, I'm sure I'm going to continue learning, but it was Val Hart. She's considered the real Dr. Dolittle, and she does a lot of master classes. So a lot of unique specialty topics, talking about like the paranormal, talking about past lives, time travel. So I kind of dived into that as well. So far it's been, 4 amazing animal communicators that have really woven my experience to where I am today.
Wow. Well, something for me that comes up is I overthink things and I second guess a lot of things. So that's my biggest challenge was even just following my intuition. How are you able to, and how have you learned to distinguish between what's just like a random thought in your mind or imagination versus what is definitely coming from the animal?
Yeah, that's a hard one even today, especially in the beginning with animal communicators. We always doubt, okay, is this really coming from the animal? Is this really just me making this up? And I think the biggest ones is if it's the whatever your first impression, the first thought or thing that you get, that's usually the correct one. If you start to analyze and start to overthink, that's when you start to have like the monkey mind kind of come in. So it's usually the first thing that comes up is usually the correct one. If you get something that's really surprising or shocking to you, that's usually a sign that it's from the animal. The other one is just the way that they communicate. So it could be like words that you might not use typically. That could be the animal coming in, just different verbiage, things like that.
That's so fascinating. Well, I'm interested in exploring more about kind of like the inner world of these animals, um, because here's something that we talk a lot about in the spiritual circles that I'm a part of. We talk about how all of life is connected, and that includes everything: plants, trees, animals, all humans, everywhere. Um, what messages do you get from the animals that helps you to understand about the interconnectedness of all of life?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we think of ourselves as like separate beings, having separate minds, separate emotions, having separate experiences. But what animals have kind of consistently shared or shown too is that nothing is separate. So that we're all connected, we're all kind of intertwined. For example, if a family member's energy is off, we can all feel that. So, and their animals are really good mirrors to us. So they reveal emotions that we're suppressing, the wounds that we carry, any truths that we forgot. So they're really good at being a mirror to us.
Because I think that's still a thing in our society, despite how much I think most of us in our culture love our pets. I think that's still something that people think animals do not have self awareness, or that animals don't have much capacity for thought or feeling. What is your perspective on that based on everything that you've communicated with animals?
Yeah, they are very intelligent, full of wisdom, sentient beings. They have feelings. They know a lot, I think a lot more about us than we know about ourselves. So, yeah, they're
Wow.
just absolutely amazing.
That's fascinating to think that, because as an owner of a pet, that's how we think of it. I'm the owner of this pet, right? But maybe they don't even see it that way. Sometimes I joke with my young son and I say, my dog Calvin wants to take his humans for a walk because he's like a stubborn beagle and he he likes to decide where we go and what direction and everything. So, what is their perspective on that? Do they feel like they have a purpose in our life and they know what their purpose is? Maybe even more than we do as humans.
Yeah, a lot of times when I connect in with animals, I that's one of the questions I typically ask is what their soul mission is, what their purpose is
Oh,
in that
yeah.
guardian's life. And of course, they all have little different ones, but the common theme is that they're here to teach us, provide comfort, heal us, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Come here to protect us, help us ground, and remind us to kind of play more, let go, be in the present moment. And
Mhm.
also, animals, I think there's usually an agreement, but there's usually something where people have a general idea of what their job is. So there's some animals that, or guardians, they, have the animal and their sole purpose is they want that animal to protect them. Other times it's more for emotional support and comfort. So specifically with dogs, they like to know what their job is in the household.
So, do you believe in the idea, based on your work, like soul contracts and an animal kind of understanding what its life path will be, or maybe even who its owners will be?
Yeah, I definitely believe in soul contracts. I think everything is divinely planned. So, they choose us as much as we choose them. And
Mm.
so, I don't think anything is really a coincidence. Everything is pre planned, kind of predetermined. I talk to some animals and they already know that they're going to come back to that person in that current lifetime. They're just very wise, very sentient beings.
I guess I'm also curious when we have an animal that's like misbehaving in some way, either misbehaving or having some kind of like a physical ailment. How much have you experienced that that could be due to either their environment with their human or some kind of like an emotional need within the animal?
Yeah, so every behavior has a root cause. There's always some kind of reason for it.
Hmm.
Sometimes, if it's a behavior that's kind of come on suddenly, it's usually kind of a lot of times health related. So maybe something's going on health wise, they're in pain, and then they're starting to act out. It could be emotional, it could just be the environment, something changed in their environment, their routine that they're not really liking, and so of course they're going to act that out. A lot of times I get things that are past life related. So it could be trauma that they're carrying on from a past life, that especially if they're fearful, insecure, abandonment issues, that kind of comes up. And it could just be, it's a specific reason for the behavior.
Yeah. So I know in my own experience with my dog, especially now that he's reached old age and he's having some health issues, I worry about him a lot. um, do animals also worry about us, or are they more just like the peace holders of our families? Are they ever able to take on concern or worry for their humans?
Yeah, they definitely feel our emotions, our energy. If we're stressed out, they can feel that stress. And it
Yeah.
depends on the animal. Some animals are really much more, like I would say, empathic, really in tune to that, and they're going to absorb more of that energy. Other ones are pretty good at just kind of being grounded and kind of just balancing it. I've noticed cats are really good at just kind of keeping that energy balance in the house, whereas dogs are a little bit more just like more connected to that person and more physically connected, I would say. So more of the emotional, connectedness, the emotions going through whatever their body, whatever they're feeling, their stress, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit about. I know I just mentioned that my dog has reached old age, so it's something I've been thinking about. Is like the end of life and the transition. Um, how much do animals understand about? I would think it would just be like an instinctive understanding of when it is their time to pass. And do they have any wishes from us as humans in terms of how to help them with the transition?
Yeah, so with transition cases, most of the time their animal is pretty much ready. So they're the ones that are ready to pass. It's the guardian, their person, that's having a difficult time really coming to terms to it. So some animals, most of the time, they're just worried for their person. Are they going to be okay? Are they going to be able to take care of themselves? And then animals that I've talked to in spirit, a lot of the things that come up is the person's feeling grief. Or not feeling grief, but feeling blame. So blaming themselves, yeah, blaming themselves for maybe their passing, yeah, feeling guilty. And consistently with animals in spirit, they keep saying that they want their guardian to release that guilt, forgive themselves. There's actually nothing to forgive, things like that.
Yeah. Well, how about once they actually have made the transition? Is that a part of your work to communicate with animals who have already crossed over? And could you talk about what your beliefs are about like an afterlife for our animals?
Yeah, so I communicate with animals both in the physical and in spirit.
Mhm.
Animals that I've connected to in spirit, they always say that there's never any pain. They have this feeling of lightness, freedom, ease, this expansiveness, a lot of love. Some of them have even shared the white light that kind of surrounds them when they're leaving. And in spirit, some animals reincarnate rather quickly. So a lot of times they're going to reincarnate back with their soul family. Other times they're just kind of hanging around in spirit for a while. So it could be a lot of them are like spiritual guides and mentors to their person. So you can call upon them at any time. They can
Okay.
act as like their power animals almost. And then other ones actually have shared that they have jobs in spirit. So this could be helping other souls cross over, helping other souls reincarnate to a new family, like what that might look like. Some of them have just shared healing. They're trying to heal the earth, the planet, things like that. And then a lot of them love to send signs in spirit. So whether they've already reincarnated or not, they can do it, multiple ways. But the common ones are feathers. So if you find feathers in like unusual places, it could be butterflies, it could be birds, maybe a special favorite bird that you like that you kind of start to see a lot. And it could be, insects, ladybugs, dragonflies. The other one is sound. So you might hear the sound of their collar jingling, paw prints on the ground. A distant bark or meow that reminds you of them. Another one could be scent. So you're smelling their scent, their fur, their bedding, maybe a place that you guys went together and that, the smell of that place reminds you of them. Some people feel the brush of them on their leg, a nudge on their arm, maybe feeling them on the edge of the bed. And they also come in during your dream time, during the dreams to visit you. So they just love sending signs.
Yeah. Oh, that's so reassuring. I love hearing that. So how about just for anyone watching? So someone who is not necessarily an animal communicator, are there ways that a person could be open or more open to receiving a sign from their pet if they're looking for a sign?
Yeah, I think it's just about really being open to it, being grounded and centered, trying not to think of, the negative stuff or the grief, really just, and these things can come like just really randomly and very sudden. So a lot of times it's when you're not thinking or looking for it, all of a sudden it comes to their, to their view.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you need to really do anything. It just comes naturally.
Yeah. In your work as an animal communicator, maybe you could share like one or two messages that you think the animals like most want us to hear. What do you think would be the most important things they would want to convey to us and help us to understand?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing across it all is always to be present, to really be in the present moment, to be grounded, and just really coming in from the heart space. So not being in a state of fear, worry, not worrying about the future, being in the present moment, tapping into your heart, and just really coming back to the heart space is just kind of across the board what they keep saying, and to slow down. So we're always in this fast pace, getting all these things, trying to get things done, and they're just always saying to slow down, be present, take time in nature, ground yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I love that message. I feel like that is always the reminder that I get from my dog. Sometimes I like to just like hold him when I'm feeling especially anxious so I can almost like breathe in his calm.
Yeah, they're really good for emotional support, just comfort, emotional support, and they're a really good example of grounding, being in the present moment.
Yeah. Well, how about how this work has changed you? Has it shifted your view on God, spirituality, consciousness? What has it made you realize?
I think for me, it's just knowing that we're all connected and that everything is energy. So this can extend even further to trees. Trees are energetic beings, kind of, and you can even communicate with the trees, the plants, the flowers. For me, it's also like insects and bugs. I've never really been too aware of them consciously, but now I'm like, talking to them outside when I'm in the backyard. And I've always been kind of scared of spiders. So now I'm a lot more open to talking to them, not being in a state of fear, realizing that they're also, a being, they have their own, soul. And I think that's kind of opened my perspective on just all living things in general that we're surrounded by.
Yeah. So one option for all of us, if we want to understand our pets better, obviously we talk to an animal communicator. Do you have maybe like one great tip that anybody could follow if they just wanted to better understand their pet?
I think, well, first of all, I think we're unconsciously already connecting with your animals. So if you get like the image or the idea of, oh, I need to go feed my dog or I need to go take my dog on a walk, a lot of times they're kind of already tapping into you. Like, hey, I want to go on a walk. I'm ready for my food now. So it's little things like that that we unconsciously are already connected, with them. But in general, I think just feeling the love for them that you have, and just imagining that like a cord of light connecting your heart to theirs, and then just being open to whatever you receive. So you can just, they're always listening to you, so you can always, send them a message. You can even send them an image. If you're really good at visualization, you can send them an image of, maybe where you're going to go next, or if you're going on a hike or a walk, share that with them. And they are getting it. But in terms of receiving anything from them, it's just a matter of really being open and grounded, and just letting anything that comes through come through. Whether it's a feeling, an emotion, an image, a thought that comes through, just being open to it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I think this is such a fascinating conversation. I feel like I could ask 100 more questions. But how about if people would like to connect with you, if they'd like to have a reading for their pet, can you talk about how people can find you?
Yes, so I do remote animal communication sessions, whether the animal's in spirit or in the physical, and it doesn't matter what animal. And I also do energy healing work, so that includes Reiki, and it includes Teteva cosmic frequency healing, so that's more of a cosmic energy type of healing modality. And I'm also going to be launching a membership, and this membership will help people tap into this ability to communicate with animals, strengthen their intuition. There's going to be live monthly practices, meditations, techniques, lessons, tips to help you, and there's even going to be a monthly group energy healing as well. So all that can be found on my website at soulfulanimalconnections.com.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Tatiana. Thank you for helping us to better understand all these animals that we love so much and are so important in our lives.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.